Hey guys, I'm here with David Wallis. We are at Longhorns. I've also got Levi McCann. We are going to chat health and fitness as well as mud races. And we're going to fight about which one is more exhausting, the long mud race or the long adventure race.
Mud race.
Mud race, there you go. So we're going to kick this off with a little bit of history. Actually, no. You know, we'll jump right into the races. So what race is coming up and what are we going to do?
All right, so the race we have coming up is on September 23rd. It's the Savage Race and the Savage Blitz. I'm leading a team for the Savage Blitz. That's the 5K version. It's very entry-level friendly. You're looking at probably somewhere between 15 to 20 obstacles.
Are they back to back to back, or are they spread out?
They're spread out over the. Typically, what they do is in a 5K, you'll have a handful in the beginning. So let's go with 20.
Okay.
So you'll have 5 in the first half mile. You'll have 10, probably 8 scattered in the next 2 miles, and then you'll have a bunch in the last mile.
Okay.
Kind of back to back to back. You're running probably about an eighth of a mile obstacle, obstacle. Some of them are going to be back to back, but it's as you get closer to the festival area and the finish line, you're going to have a lot more back to back to back, as there's spectators there watching.
Sure.
So,
and when they do the longer race, they just give you more running without any obstacles. So it's probably the same routes, just more loops or something?
It'll be a slightly different route. Typically, you'll run together for a bit, and then the Savage Race will split off. So to comparison-wise, the Blitz is a 5K. The Savage Race is anywhere from between 5 and 7 miles.
Mushrooms for you all?
Yes,
Thank you.
Pretty hot, very careful.
So whenever they would bring, we just ordered some cheddar stuffed mushrooms. David's first time. Whenever they bring out the mushrooms, they always say the plate is hot. And so Evie would immediately start putting her tongue out at the plate to see if she could get a reaction from the waiter.
What he doesn't tell you is that he made up the joke and then felt he was too old to do it. So you're like, Evie, stick your tongue out.
She picked up the dad joke right away. It was totally fine. She did a good job with it.
That's a terrible placement for the knife. I didn't realize that. It was like this,
Hanging
pointing
off.
straight at me.
Okay, so
So
how
get back
will
to the
everybody
race.
get up there and how do they register?
There is a link. You can look up Savage Race. I think it's savagerace.com. And
I'll go find the link too, and I'll put it in an email and in this podcast episode.
Yeah, it's on the Garage Forum event page. And then there, I have a link for the Blitz, but that link is good for both the race and I call it the race. That's the full race. That's the 5 to 7 mile.
Yeah. The bigger one and the shorter one.
Yep, and the shorter one, the Blitz.
Okay, so you can go on our
5K.
Facebook, members only. We have an event in there, and you can find the details that way, or look down in the doodly-doo below, and I'll try to remember to post a link.
Yep, and now that's very
How do they
important.
race with you guys, though? You have to sign up for a particular heat or
Yeah,
event?
so while you're, so one thing's very important is it'll give you a list for all the races to register for. And when you pull up the Georgia race, it'll have all of them. So you got to make sure you're selecting the correct one. Because last year, year before when we did this, we had somebody who accidentally signed up for the full race when we were doing the Blitz. So
See you guys later!
yeah, I think so. Right.
Okay, so we ordered, and now we got to jump back in, and I don't remember what we were talking about.
Registration.
Okay. Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
right. How to register for the
You had
right
the
one.
one dude register for the wrong one.
Right, and he was trying to figure out how to get it back. Other than emailing customer service, I don't think you can, so he got stuck running.
And they probably don't care. They're like, look, you paid, you're
Yeah.
in, you just go and race.
Now, granted, he could run the Blitz route, the shorter one. He just paid
For the bigger
a little
price,
bit extra. So yeah, there is a link on the event page. If you can't find the link, there is, and now, granted, there are two. The Thomases, Jordan and Jamie Thomas, set one up for the full 5 to 7 mile race. I set one up for the Blitz for the 5K. So there are two. I don't know if they put a link in theirs, but the link
So
is
since we
definitely on mine.
CrossFit, we should go for the full race.
We definitely should go for the full race.
So if you're thinking about doing this, if you're training and you've been doing CrossFit, you're ready to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not out there to get make first place or anything like that. It's all for fun. It's all for introducing people to the sport.
Right.
And just getting out there and putting what you've done in the gym into real life.
Right. Well, maybe not real life, but
Could be.
an event life. Yeah. If the zombies are coming, then yes, it's real life. We know we need to be jumping over stuff and climbing mud walls. So, what is a rough cost for the long race?
Oh, that's a good question. So
Is it like $100, $800, $50?
I want to say it starts out around 79 or 89 bucks.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
But that's months and months ahead.
Sure.
Like what they do is
Oh, as it fills up.
as it fills up and as a certain date deadlines hit. Like I think I want to say it was either last night or it's today is the deadline for the next pay increase or price increase.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, it's late. It's not today. It was like 2 weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, we're talking like it's what
It's the
the 6th. So yeah, you've already missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'll have to get in your flex capacitor, driven
Right.
car, your DeLorean, and get back and pick that up.
But so yeah, it slowly increases throughout the year. They release them. I don't know if they have the 2024 races out right now, but
Okay.
they will in the next couple months. So you can start.
And they
registering
usually
for
hit the
them.
same place. So this one is in the same place last year, about the same time.
Yeah, usually once they find a location, they lock it down. This one's
Okay.
in Dallas, Georgia.
Oh, that's a good point. We should have said that. So Dallas, Georgia is only about 30 minutes away.
It's about 30 minutes away. It's a pretty easy drive. There's a good restaurant about 15 minutes from the venue that we've met for breakfast a couple of times.
Okay.
We'll probably do that. We'll coordinate that as we get closer to the event. If you're into that, I actually don't like to eat before those
racing?
things.
No.
So
Lots of coffee?
Yeah, a little bit of coffee, maybe a little bit of like oatmeal or something, just like some grains and carbs. But other people like a full breakfast. So
how long does the longer race? How long? Like from start to finish, what would be our team's like? You're out there for 30 minutes. You're out there for 6 hours.
a good kind of rule is whatever your normal running mile time is. Let's say you run a 10-minute mile, add about 10 minutes to that.
Okay, so basically double it, essentially.
Essentially double what your normal time is. So a lot of people say 20 minutes per mile.
Okay.
Per mile is a good indicator, and that's not because you're running slow, but it adds in the time of the obstacle.
Yeah.
Everybody stopping, helping people over. So I would say for a let's just say for the sake of it, instead of saying 5 to 7, we're going to say 7 miles because
Yeah, got to pick a number.
if we're
It's
not
a 7 mile
lucky,
race. Yeah.
most of these places are going to make it more difficult, so you're probably going to look at closer to 7. I know that number, if you've never even ran a 5K, it can seem kind of
Big, yeah.
big, but it's
So it's gonna be
honestly
about an hour out there on the course.
I would say 2.
Okay, 2 hours.
About 2
on the
hours.
course.
Going at a decent pace with the obstacles, helping people over the obstacle.
Do you ever have to wait in line for obstacles, or are they usually pretty clear?
It depends on how they route the course.
Okay.
Sometimes, yes, there can be a backlog and like a bit of a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Depending on the obstacle you're getting over.
Now, what if you
But-
said, I don't want to do whatever that obstacle is, it's not up my alley, I'm too nervous. Can you skip an obstacle, and is there a punishment?
So that is a great question, and this is one of the biggest differentiators between the races. So a Savage race, as I mentioned before, is a great beginner race because there is no penalty for skipping an obstacle or not completing an obstacle. So if you come up to something, you're like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. First of all, I'll encourage you to try it at least.
Yeah.
You'll have a team there. You'll have your garage fam there to help you over. But if you feel like, no, I'm not going to do it, there's no shame in saying just walking around it. There's no penalty.
Maybe a little shame.
Yeah, a little shame. Well, shame me in the gym. How about that?
So did this one make you do burpees then, if you're going to like...
No, that is the differential.
Okay.
Between,
This is Savage, that's right.
This is Savage race. Spartan race, if you want to step it up a bit, there is a 30 burpee penalty for every failed obstacle.
Okay.
Now, I will say that lately they've started relaxing on that and giving you penalty loops.
Okay.
So it's like an eighth of a mile, maybe a quarter mile, in addition to the 5K or 10K that you're running. But that's the Spartan race. That's not what we're doing
Right.
yet. That's coming up. If you're interested, let me know.
When is that one?
There is one in October,
Okay.
but it's going to be the same weekend that I'm going to do the one in Nashville.
Oh, wow. So road trip. People could do that
it's
one.
about 3 hours away. Yeah, 4 hours away. I like the course a little better, mainly because I've done the Spartan course here 10 plus times, and I'm kind of over it. So
Right.
I like Nashville. It's about 30 minutes east of Nashville.
Okay.
I forget the actual town that it's in.
Yeah. Nashville's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get an hour time change. So it's really only 3 hours
No,
away.
you don't.
Oh, you
You
don't?
do in
That's
Nashville, but it's actually in Eastern time. I made that mistake. I got to the race
And you're like, oops.
way earlier than I needed to.
You're just really, really ready. So Levi, have you ever done a mud race?
No, I have not.
What about the Fire Breather Challenge when we used to do that? Did you help us set up any obstacles when we?
Yes, I think so. I was also like 7, so it's been a while.
So we had Eric Pritchard came up with another idea besides doing the gym. Let's also do an obstacle race, but it was before they were really big. Mm-hmm. So we're like, what are you talking about? So we had we would string up barbed wire. We had somebody making fences for us to climb over. I mean, it was insane what was going on. I'm like, I don't understand what the race is about. You just run through all these obstacles on purpose. And anyway, we put on a couple of them. One of them was at Rope Mill, and the terrain over Rope Mill is pretty aggressive if you find the right places. Mm-hmm. And putting it out there wasn't so bad. That was kind of fun and all the excitement. The hard part was when it was all over, said and done, and nothing was in the right place anymore. Things got moved and like just hammered and just messed up or whatever. And you're like, okay, now we need to take it all back. You're like, man, that stinks. All the plates we put out there, all the sandbags we put out there, we all had to carry them back in. I think one of the very first ones we did, we messed up where we said, hey, you got to take the sandbag to the top of the hill. And that was it. And they're like, crap, now we got all these sandbags to the top of the hill and there's another heat coming. So how do we get all the sandbags down? So we had to have somebody like running them down until, the executive decision came up like, hey, you know what? You're going up
and down.
and you got to come down. You're like, yeah, why didn't you guys just change the rules? Like, can we do that? Like, it's an obstacle race. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, that was a pretty. We made bad choices. It got better, but we made some bad choices.
I will. So speaking of sandbags, I did a race last year in November, just before Thanksgiving. It was a Spartan race out in Phoenix. And it was a beast, so that's their longest, their longest normal race. It's a half marathon.
Oh, wow.
And it was in Phoenix, so I wasn't sure quite what to expect, but it ended up being nice and flat. It was all out of washed out riverbeds. So the added challenge to that was all this loose sand.
Sure.
So
that you're trying to run through?
Yeah, trying to run through. And eventually I just stopped and I just walked because I was walking as fast as I was running, and running took 5 times the amount of energy.
Right.
But anyway, as we're coming back, and we went out, 13 miles. So we went way out of way. We started from the Phoenix International Speedway and went way out in the desert and came way back. And you could see the little stadium way up in the distance. It was tiny. And I realized how far out we actually were. But as we got back and we hit the 13-mile mark and we were at the stadium, we're walking up and we're seeing all these people running up and down the stadium stairs. And everybody's like, is that us? Is that the kids' race? It's like, no, that's us. So we walk up, and that's where they had the sandbags, 60, 70-pound sandbags that you got to carry up 4 flights of stadium stairs, walk across the grandstands, and then come back down 4 flights, and then drop them off after you've ran
13 miles.
Yeah, 13 miles. So my legs were shot after that.
Well, so there's another race, and who does this one? Is the death race, where it's like people don't finish it, or they don't know what is going to happen. You're out there for unknown amount of time doing unknown obstacles, the repetition or whatever, and they lie to you about how long you've been doing it.
That's Spartan.
Okay, that is the Spartan race.
Yeah.
And is
So-
that their culmination of all the races? Is if you can do this, then
That's pretty much like the top end. Like they have with Spartan, you have your 3 basic ones. You have your sprint, super, and beast. That's a 5K, 10K, half marathon, respectively. And then beyond that, you have an ultra, which is basically a double beast. Beast is a half marathon, so I think it's 30 miles
oh wow,
and about 60 obstacles.
okay,
But essentially, it's two
2 laps.
two
through
laps
the-
with the beast. Then they got the death race, which is 24 hours where you just run however long, and you're running. I think it's for laps.
Okay. Is
I
it
don't
24
know.
hours? Like, do they know the end time?
I think so.
Okay.
And then they will start pulling people off, like once somebody has officially kind of won it. And people are like
Just
way
nail
behind.
it till you keep
just
going.
stop. Let's get off.
No, that would be funny. That would be interesting to me to do one time, and then I'd probably never do that again. But I do like long suffering and seeing how long I can actually like.
Suffer.
Yeah, and like, can I hold off? Can I maintain? Can I keep going? I mean, I think it's like in CrossFit. You get into the workout and you're like, okay, well, I've just done round 1 and round 2. I can look at the clock. I can estimate my times. You're like, all right, can I dig? Can I make it through this, right? And so I think sometimes maybe the secret of people doing CrossFit is, can you just handle living in the suck for 15 to 20 minutes or whatever it is?
Oh yeah. And I've got I'll keep them at a minimum since we're trying to encourage people to do this. But
Right.
I've got a lot of horror stories. Right now, they've
Well, if you race for
standardized-
someone wise, then
Right.
it's a
A
little bit.
lot of my horror stories came from I'm just starting out. I didn't know anybody doing these, so I didn't know what to ask, what to prep for, what to expect, and ended up being out in a course with no water, no food, no source of energy, and
So you basically went for like a 5K, but you should have had a hydration pack and some bars and some other stuff.
well, I went for a beast. I went for
Oh, wow,
but
the big
they-
one.
They've now standardized them, but before it was 11 plus miles.
Okay, so the plus means you don't know.
It
Just
could be
until-
11 miles. It could
Right.
be like my biggest horror story was 15 and a half miles.
Wow.
And that's the one I didn't have any water with me. I didn't have any snacks like Cliff Bars or anything like that. I was just out there for 6+ hours
With nothing.
with nothing.
Wow.
And my buddy and I, when we finished, it was an Outback actually. We both ordered full entrees, appetizers, salads, desserts, 2 or 3 beers, and we finished
Everything?
crumb on the plate.
I'll take another steak. I like to joke when we order, they're like, you can order surf and turf. I like to say, can I get turf and turf? I just want a steak with a side of steak. That's all I really want in this meal. So similarly, we'll do these adventure races, and you have a time frame. So you know, okay, it's about a 10-hour race, or it should be. After 10 hours, you're supposed to, like, they cut you off, so you're incentivized to get back in time. But I have seen people come out there, and you're like, you're going to be racing in the woods, biking, canoeing, and running with no support. There is nobody out there. There's checkpoints randomly in the woods and nobody out there. And people will show up, and it's just like them with like a bottle of water. You're like, yeah, you're not going to make it. You need, this is 10 or 12 hours that you're going to be out there. There's no way that works. Unless you, I guess some places you'll pass by gas stations. So if you have the universal survival tool, which is cash,
Right.
then you just, I will buy whatever I need to buy. But there's less of a, I guess, in the adventure race, the world itself is the challenge. How do you get through? I guess navigating is a challenge. There's no obstacles or anything. You're just team of 3 usually, and you run by canoe to checkpoints that they've hidden out in the national forest or wherever. And so yeah, the hard part is don't get lost.
Right.
If you get lost, hopefully you find somebody else who can point you to the right direction.
Now, that is a difference with both the Savage and the Spartan. The course routes are very clearly marked. For the most part, I mean, it's just ribbon tape, but
Sure,
they're,
and you can probably see the footprints of everybody
yeah,
else.
you can see. There's only been a few times where it's in like the deep woods, and you're just going like am I even on the right path? And you'll finally find like a little, arrow sign. It's like, okay, good.
Yeah, so I feel that way when I'm on the Appalachian Trail or hiking any of the trails that are blazed, and you're walking along, you're like, I haven't seen a blaze in a while. I'm off the right, and you're on the only trail that is out there. It's like, this is it. There is nothing else. Yet, you wonder, okay, am I on the right? Did I miss a turn? Where's the blaze? So I learned that anytime the trail either splits or turns or make a wacky whatever, they will double blaze to let you know, hey, something's coming up that may confuse you, so keep your eyes open. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know they were helping us like that. But so in an adventure race, there is no route. You literally can do whatever you want.
You want to go?
Yeah, so Evie and I did a race just recently, and my goal was for her to want to do another one. So our priority was, first we want to be safe, then we want to have fun, then we want to finish, and then we want to get checkpoints. So we skipped a ton of checkpoints, but it just so happened that the way the race was made, that to get those checkpoints was risky, and she ended up coming in first as a solo female. Like, that's insane. You ran your first race, you took it super conservative, we skipped so many checkpoints, it's embarrassing, and you won. Now, there was only one other girl racing solo female, but she beat her, and she was an adult. So a 14-year-old took her. So Levi did an adventure race when he was, how old were you?
Young, like 10.
And it was up in Rome. It was me, you, Olivia, and Evan? Yeah. Or just...
It was all four of us.
Do you remember anything about that race?
I remember the ending.
Oh, yeah?
Or kinda. All I remember is at one point we were walking in a parking lot with cars, and I was just thinking, I'm so glad I'm finally done with this.
I think it rained on us while we were racing.
It was all rainy and gross.
So on our YouTube channel, it's the picture I have as my profile.
Is that it?
Is that race where you and Olivia were, or I think it was you and Olivia, were down the way getting the checkpoint. There was this ravine, this stream had cut out so much of the water. It was like a 12-foot ditch the stream would run in. You had to jump into this thing, and getting out was not, it had rained, so getting out was not easy.
Right.
And so I pulled out my camera and took a selfie with them in the background. And it's been that way for like 10 years. I've never changed it. One day I'll update my photos. Yeah.
Good picture.
It is a good picture. It's a funny picture. Okay.
Funny.
So tell us a little bit about your fitness background. So did you grow up doing these races or running cross country or any of this stuff? So,
Well, no, I got into the Spartan race. Well, to wind it back, I did run track just before high school. It was like from 8th grade into 9th grade.
okay.
I started off long distance.
Long distance in track is like 2 miles, right?
Right. Or a mile, and basically
yeah.
it starts at a mile.
Yeah.
And then I realized that was really boring.
That's right. You want to go around again? Just go around again.
Around and around and around.
It's very similar to my cross-country experience. I was good at it in like middle school, and I was like, this is way too boring to want to be good at, because I just ran for like 12 minutes and then I was done.
Yeah, I went to my first meet, and the long distance was at the end. I was at the top of the age bracket, so I had to wait for all the other age brackets to go. And then it was at that point where people were either already in high school leagues, and this was like the last kind of rec league there was. So there was like 3 of us, and they usually ran male and female separately. But since there were only like 3 or 4 of us, they're like, all right, just go on the track and go. And that was it. Just the stands of people just watching us go around a track.
Right.
I'm like, this is so boring.
That is funny. Yeah.
So I went to the long distance coach, and I was like, yeah, I'm out. Like, the sprint coach needs somebody on, to man their third leg on the relay. So I'm going to switch over to that.
And that's a different type of running.
Oh yeah. Completely different.
So were you built more for the sprinting, or were you built more for the long distance back then?
Back then, if you saw me, you would think of long distance.
Okay.
I was about Right now I'm 6 foot. I was tall for my age at the time, so I was about 5'8" at the time, and
Okay.
I'm probably 140 pounds.
Oh yeah.
So I was very lean, and that's why I thought I would like running long distance, but
Until
I
you
didn't.
realize it's boring. Yeah.
but I was also fast, so I was able to make the transition
Yeah.
a lot easier. So, but that sprint mindset got into me. So when I did start years later, start getting into doing the local 5Ks and stuff like that, my very first one, I was out the gate hot, like gone.
Yeah.
And I lasted about a quarter mile, half mile, and I had to walk the rest of it.
Oh wow.
And then till I learned how to pace myself. And same thing in CrossFit. When 3, 2, 1, go.
You can't come out hot. Yeah.
I was out the gate hot, and round 1 or 2, I was dead.
Right.
I wish I could find it. My very first, my intro workout was actually on Memorial Day. So while everybody was doing Murph, I was doing my intro.
Okay.
So I came in, I'm seeing like all these people doing hundreds of pull-ups, and I'm like, I can't do this.
So, yes, we are back from eating, and we don't know what we were talking about, but I think it has something to do with CrossFit. So I think I had said, we were doing, you just got out of running races. So you were done running.
Oh, the backstory, yeah.
Yeah, so then you said you did some back squatting, and the high school coach totally coached you to proper form.
Yeah, so I went into weightlifting in my freshman year in high school. They offered it as an elective. And so that's where I started.
Oh wait, so it was a class in school,
it was a
not
class.
a.
They have a class in school for us.
For you guys, interesting. Okay, is that 0 period? Okay.
But like, there's one during school as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was like, it was an elective for me. It was a PE elective.
Yeah.
So I did it my first semester as a freshman.
Yeah.
And again, I went in at 5'8", 5'9", 140 pounds, tall and lanky, and there with all the varsity football players. And I will say I ended the school year at 185 pounds and almost all muscle.
Okay.
So that was my time to kind of grow. And
Lots of creatine.
I didn't do any protein, any of that stuff. I didn't know anything about that. Plus, it was like right in the middle of the school day, so they wouldn't let you bring like food
Nothing.
and all that stuff. You just had to go work out, and that was it. So,
Right.
But
So tell me about your back squat story. That was good.
So back
this is
squat
what you
story.
don't do.
yeah. So fast forward to my senior year, I had another free elective, so I took weightlifting again. And again, coach never really taught us like, hey, here's the workout, or here's the lift. Here's
And
how you do it.
yeah.
It was like, okay, back squat. Put it on your back, squat down, come back up.
We didn't even get that. So I took something. I thought it was through wrestling. I don't remember, it was so long ago. But I do remember the coach was behind his glass wall, whatever, doing like grades or something. I don't know what he was doing. He couldn't have been doing grades because they had no grades. But they never left the room. And all the guys were just out lifting and doing, I don't even know why I was in there because I don't think I ever lifted. It must have been a wrestling class or something. But
Oh, no,
those
ours-
coaches didn't do anything.
Ours was out there, but if we weren't lifting, if we went to get water without getting permission, like we were all down doing push-ups. It was crazy. There's no structure. The only structure was upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, and then Friday was always a free lift day. And they were graded on if we PR'd. So we started off maxing out.
So go really low. You had to,
Right. Well, I didn't really think about that much. Like when you're in high school, you're like, I'm gonna see how much I can lift.
Right.
Like I should have sandbagged this, but
right, game the system.
So you get like a B if you don't PR.
what was it? It was
We're old, Levi.
number
We
of-
can't remember that far back.
well, it was if you got 10 pounds over your previous max, that was an A. If you got 5 pounds, it was a B. If you got your previous max, it was a C. And anything below that, like you couldn't even get that,
Right.
like failed.
So they graded you every 2 weeks or something?
6, 8 weeks, I think.
That's good.
But everything was semi-percentage based.
Yeah.
So we got our max. Let's say I got 135 pounds. There was a chart on the wall. So we either did what was it? There were 2 different ones.
I'm sure it was back by chest and try. Everyone
Well, it
skipped
was
leg
like
day.
we didn't do 3 sets of 10. It was something else.
Okay.
Some other formula. It was 2 different
yeah.
ones. But basically, you look on that chart and it would tell you, here's what each lift should be based on what your previous max was. And I mean, it worked. I increased every time.
Yeah, that's the Ripeto's linear progression. No, not Ripetoe. Yeah, Ripeto's linear progression model, starting strength. It was
Right.
like, I think he wrote it in the 80s, and it was basically hypertrophy, just lift, and try to lift a little bit more next week.
Right.
And that's it. You're like, well, that's not rocket science. It's like, no,
Right.
it's not. And that's how
really
you
what
get
it is.
bigger.
Yeah. So we did that. We were agreeing on bench press, incline bench press, back squat. I think that was it.
Yeah. And then
We
we like
did
the
cleans,
bigger
but
lifts.
They were not the cleans that they were.
Yeah, it was break your back, pick the bar up.
Yeah, just grip it and rip it. But
Yeah.
they were hang cleans.
Yeah,
So what we
okay.
did, just constantly, no
So-
form whatsoever. It's just pick it up and like put it
talk
up your
about the
shoulder.
story with the,
it's the
back
back
squat
row.
with the guard on the back. This is maybe one reason we don't use those, but
Yeah, so in my senior year, I believe it was my last semester. A few weeks into it, we're doing back squat, and they had the foam pad for the bar for your lats. And
but that's what lats are for. So if
Right.
you're at the gym, this is why it just rests back there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But there would
Grip
be
a little closer, bundle them
pad.
up.
Think
yeah.
of a 1-inch pad going all around the bar to
Yeah.
cushion it.
So yeah, they had this pad on there, and I don't know what weight I was doing, but I was in the middle of my sets, and I had gone down, and I was coming back up, and the pad started rolling down my back, and it was about to my shoulder blades,
Oh, jeez.
and I was like, well, I'm almost up, so I'll just pop it back up onto on top of my shoulders. But as soon as I did that, felt a little pop in my lower back. But I was able to get the weight back up. I racked it, and that was it. I walked away. I knew my
And
back was messed up.
Lifelong problems ever since.
Yep, I've had chronic back problems ever since, and I was able to get a doctor's note to say, hey, I don't need to do any lower body workouts
Right.
for the rest of the semester.
Well, that's good. So you still did a bunch of upper body. There you go.
Yeah, I got a lot of crap from the coach and from everybody else, but
You're like,
I was
look.
like,
Yeah.
this hurts really bad, so I'm not doing anything. And I did not touch a barbell for back squat until I started CrossFit.
Yeah, wow.
And then I was actually shown proper form, and I'd never done a deadlift
Yeah.
until I started CrossFit, and I was shown proper form.
So it is kind of scary to see what, like, we'll do summer strength and we'll see what some kids are doing. And they're like, this is what they taught us. I'm like, and I hate to say, like, well, that coach is wrong. So I will usually lead with, like, well, that's one way to do it, but let's try this other way.
And there's the right way to do it and the
I
wrong
try
way.
not to do that because I don't want to make them mad. But a lot of times they'll say, like, well, you're making me go down too low, and so I'm not lifting nearly as much. I'm like, yes, but it depends on how you define back squat.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just drop 2 inches, then that's not really anything.
Doing a calf raise.
You work out, so Levi works out sometimes with his buddies. Do you guys ever get into arguments about, like, what lift you should be doing and what it's supposed to do or how it's supposed to work?
Not all the time. I haven't worked out with him recently, but like, I mean, I guess kind of today. Today there was like, we were doing, it wasn't really an argument, we were just like educating one of my friends who doesn't lift very often. So it was me, Nico, and Bryce. Bryce doesn't lift at all, like pretty much at all.
He listens to this podcast, so you better watch out. He's gonna come over and get you.
He was there, so he knows what happened. But he doesn't lift at all. But he doesn't really do anything. He is athletic. He was cycling for the last like month and a half in like Utah and like Colorado.
Oh, wow.
So he's been like active, but that's all leg stuff, not really upper body. And today we're training chest and back. So we get there and we get to the bench press portion. So me and Nico both like work out. Nico is I think 15, 20 pounds heavier than me.
In a lifter
But, like,
body.
but like muscle
Yeah,
heavier
yeah.
than me.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. I remember Nico. Yeah, he's a strong guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's pretty strong. But basically, we start doing bench press, and so I PR'd recently, so I'm doing less weight, and like I'm going to be training for him, and then doing dumbbell deadlift to like actually
Dumbbell
like,
bench press.
Sorry, dumbbell bench press
Yeah.
to like work on the heavy
Stabilizers
parts.
and stuff. Yeah, sure.
And then like barbell bench press, just maybe like 2 sets of like 15 to 20, just to like keep the movement.
Sure.
And so I put 95 on the bar after we warm up. And so I put 95 on, I do about 15. Nico goes down, he does about 15. Bryce goes down, he goes down, and he like barely gets 1. And I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I forgot that like
You need to
he
reload
doesn't
the bar.
win. So
Yeah.
then we were like, what do we do? He was like, I'll just take the weight off and just do the bar. And I was like, no, I'll just go behind you and I'm just gonna, you know how you like
Yeah.
barely touch the bar enough so that they're struggling every rep. So I just did that. And
That's gonna wreck him tomorrow.
oh yeah, the good part is when he would try to put the bar up, he can't put the bar up because
Yeah.
I just push it back. So he was doing as many reps.
Worst of as you guys
Yeah.
want.
And by the end of it, we would just be like curling it, and he was like, "Please just put the bar up." we got him to do like 3 or 4 sets of like 15.
There you go.
But
That is a tough one when like you're benching and you're like, I'm trying to get this up, and then someone like barely touches the bar, but it feels like they're grabbing it and
grabbing.
just lifting it. But it's just the smidgest, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back. It is that thing. You're like, oh, you just grabbed it. You're like, no, I just put my 2
Yeah.
fingers there. And sometimes you don't even have to touch it. You just put your hands there, and then
it
all of a
just,
sudden they're
like,
like,
keeps
yeah, that's pretty funny.
yeah,
I remember you were talking with one of your buddies about like something about range of motion. It might have been back squat or deadlift or something, and they were like, just a different mindset of like, no, this is what it is. You're like, well,
I think you're thinking of when I talked to them about creatine
oh, it could be that too.
because I
Were they using it like salt and just putting it over everything?
No. James was like, you like have to cycle it or you're gonna die in 4 months, and I was like, so you don't, but.
If you
Like,
do a lot of it, you do.
If you're doing too much,
Right.
yeah, you're gonna have to cycle it because you're doing too much.
Yeah.
If you do 5 to 10 like grams a day,
Yeah.
then
Like
you'll-
1 scoop or half a scoop or whatever the.
yeah, just like 1-2 scoops a day,
Right.
you're fine. And he was like, no, like you have to cycle it. Yeah. But
So
I
usually-
didn't argue that. I just left.
Well, and they're in the
And
foot,
I've been doing creatine for like 4 months now,
and you died.
and yeah, I'm dead.
You shrunk too. Yeah. You got a little
it was
shorter.
terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. Football has a different mentality on many things.
Oh yeah.
And so, like you can have, I don't even know the positions, I've never played football, but maybe it's the tight end, like the blind side, that movie Blind Side, you're the guys like protecting the quarterback, they want them like, what do they say, like their hands or like their arms are slightly longer than normal and their rear end is like really big, and so they want to build them a certain way because for whatever reason, the dynamics of that body build works well in that defensive position. And I know kids that are in their high school that the coaches are like, you need to keep eating. You're like, what are you going to do to them when the 4 years are over and they're not playing in high school ball? Like, you have taught them such horrible habits to undo. It's going to be a struggle the rest of their life.
Hope they
Well,
go.
even-
Hope they go to a college and pass it on to the next coach.
Maybe.
Well, even if you are eating right. So, prime example, I had this is back when was this? This is years ago. We had a dunk truck.
Oh
that would
yeah,
come
that was like
and do
10
the-
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was
awesome.
at our current building, so it had to be in 2010-ish or 12-ish. Like, I think we moved in that building in 2010.
I think the last time I did it was 2015.
Okay,
or
so yeah.
16. So, but that was it. Like after that, I think they some of the nutrition
Find them again,
challenges
Dunk truck. I forgot about them.
brought them in. But anyway, basically it gets your body fat percentage, and they'll calculate your calories, and it asks what your goal is. They're trying to increase muscle, decrease fat, decrease weight, whatever that is. You put what your goals are, and then they'll provide
Meal plan.
not so much a meal plan, but they'll say, okay, here's how many calories you should
Okay.
get. Here's how, and they'll break down the macros for you. So I did that, and at the time, I was doing lots of local races. I was 5K, 10Ks. I was doing 1 or 2 of those a month. I was doing Spartan races.
I can guess what they told you. Yeah.
Yeah. So my carbs were, while everybody else was trying to lose weight, I was trying to lose fat, but sustain my muscle. And my carbs were like 350 something grams a day. And everybody's like, I'm only getting like 100 at max.
Right.
I'm like, I'm having to eat carb supplements.
Right, to
Because
keep
I
up.
can't, I'm not ingesting that many. Then I hurt myself. And all that extra running and stuff stopped.
Yeah.
And I think took about 6 to 8 months off going to the gym and doing CrossFit. But I was so ingrained habitually
To eat.
that much that I wasn't burning it off. I
Right.
started gaining weight really fast.
Oh, wow.
But I was still in shape-ish,
Yeah.
so I was able to burn it off pretty quick. But
Yeah, you
it's-
definitely need to change the way you eat as your activity decreases or increases, but yeah, otherwise.
Yeah, it's one of those things you don't think about. I was doing this for like a year and a half straight. I was running a 5K on my own, like on my lunch breaks at work. I would just go out and run about a 5K. It's anywhere from 2 to 4 miles.
Yep.
About 3 times a week. CrossFit was 4 to 5 times a week. Whatever off day I had, I was in another gym doing accessory work. So I was working out almost every day.
Wow.
Maybe one day of rest, of absolute like rest. And even then I was out walking somewhere, so it was an active rest.
Dang.
But I was just constantly moving.
Yeah.
I was in phenomenal shape. It was a time where I was hitting all the RX. I was at the top of the leaderboard on almost every single
Right.
one, even the RX plus ones.
So we're talking like 28. That's like the perfect age for us guys. Like, I can kill everything. So we just discovered, so I knew this, but I knew it wrong. So in Wattify, I'm in there the longest because I adjusted my date to show when I actually started CrossFit, but because I'm an admin, I can go in and do that. I have it in Wattify as you're the next person in line, so the longest member, followed by Sharon, and the next day is Joe. And I always thought that was odd that it's like, there's only like 4 days between you, and then 1 day between, Sharon and Joe, and I never really thought about why until you said it wasn't 2013 when you started, it was
2012.
2012. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's because we didn't buy Wattify until 2013. So the reason all of y'all's dates are the same is because
when
we
you
were
actually bought it.
yeah, we were manually inputting them because you didn't import stuff back then like you do now. Well, maybe you did, but it wasn't as easy. So we had to probably do it in batches.
Funny enough, I got into CrossFit because of mud races.
Really? Okay. So I was going to say, how did you find it? So you were doing these things and people said, try CrossFit, or?
Yeah, so I was at work. I shouldn't say that. I was on internet, on Facebook.
Right. We don't have
And-
anyone from
yeah.
from headquarters. Yeah.
But I was surfing around and I found this random Facebook ad for a Spartan race. And I was like, this is kind of cool. I had never done anything. Usually it's all based on stuff you
Yeah.
search and all that stuff.
The algorithms were bad back then. Now they're much
So
better.
I got some random thing that popped in, maybe because I watched 300 or something. So I was like,
there we go.
here's some Spartan. But back then it was completely different, and I think it was only around for about a year.
Okay.
So it's still very new. So I saw this, and I was surfing around on their website. Looked really cool. There's a very motivational video. Got amped up just watching the trailer thing for it.
From the ad.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this is awesome.
They might have
So-
actually just put it on YouTube because that would have been just starting up in 2000, I guess 2008, but 2012 people really start using it. Yeah.
So I walked over to a buddy I was working with. I'm like, hey, there's this cool obstacle mud race thing called Spartan if you want to do it. And
He's
so
like,
he
hold
was,
my beer, I'm in.
yeah, he was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I think this was like the spring, early summer, and this was, the event was actually in October. So I had all that time to prep for it. I didn't even know what a burpee was at that point. I had
Right.
to look it up, and then I did a couple.
And you didn't touch a
oh,
barbell because of high school.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is just going to be some running. Like, that's not a big deal. I've been in and out of like a big box gym for years, so I consider myself in decent shape. I was like, well, I'll see what it is. I'll probably go out there and die, but who knows? The only thing I was worried about was a rope climb. So I never climbed
the
a
rope.
rope before. I didn't even know how. So I went out there. I don't even think I had finished yet. And I looked at my buddy, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want to keep doing this. I'm dying, and
In a good way.
in
Yeah.
a good way. Like, this is tough, but I definitely want to do some more of this. He's like, yeah, I'm on board. And even before that, Tough Mudder was around, so I saw a link for that.
That's
I had
right.
another
Tough
friend.
Mudder, yep.
That was the following spring. So in the spring of 2012, I did my first Tough Mudder. But after a Spartan, I was so beat up, and this was the sprint. It's about 4 miles at the time. This is before they standardized all the distances. I was like, what do people do to train for this? Like, none of this is what I can do in a
You can't do
regular
any of
gym.
that in a gym, yeah.
It's all like moving random things, and everybody
Flipping
there
tires,
was
grabbing
doing
sandbags, yeah.
I was like, oh, it's CrossFit. That's exactly what you guys do in CrossFit. So, what are local CrossFits doing?
We were probably the only one around. So you probably
yeah.
could have been in Chattanooga and tried to. Could you Google? I don't even know if you could Google CrossFit. How did we find stuff? Would we Yahoo it? We did something. Was Google around back then?
Google
Anyway,
was
so you
That's only 10
Google
years
it
ago.
and you're like,
So y'all actually had a Groupon.
How about that?
That's
You're
what
like-
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, it popped up as Groupon, and I was living in Canton at the time, and yeah, you guys were y'all had the Town Lake location, so I went there, and it just happened to be the same day that I went in for the my intro, which I don't know if this was on the recording, but my initial intro was on.
no,
Murph.
yeah, we didn't.
Yeah.
You and I talked about it, but we
talked
didn't
about it.
record it. Yeah, so this is a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, so I walk in, it was Memorial Day weekend, and the coach at the time was like, yeah, come out, we're having a workout on Saturday, like, you're welcome to come out and do it, or we'll do an intro.
Yeah.
So I'm walking in, I see all these people in there, I'm like, okay, cool, this is a big community. I look at the workout posted on the board, I'm like, I can't do this. 100, like, this is what you guys do every day.
It was Murph.
Yeah, it was Murph.
Yeah.
Everybody was doing Murph. I walked in the middle of Murph going on. Everybody's running in and out of the building, like doing their pull-ups,
Right.
all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't do this. And
But
so,
it looks like a Spartan race.
right. So I ended up talking to the coach that was there. We did like a 5-minute, and it was just funny too. I didn't know anything about the clocks, like all that stuff. She's like, okay, we're gonna do a 5-minute workout of 5 burpees and I think it was like 10 or 15 air squats.
Sure.
I just keep doing rounds of that.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. So she walked away, and I kind of stretched, warmed up, and I'm like, clock rolled around to like an even minute, so I started going, and I was going at it for about 2 minutes. Then she comes back. She's like, okay, are you ready to get started? I'm like,
I already started.
I already started. Like, I'm about halfway through this.
Yes. So this is good to hear in multiple ways. One, this is how we did things back in 2012. It was you just showed up and we're like, I don't know, do some stuff.
Yeah.
So there was no real formal process. There was like, and the number. So we did do a lot of Groupon, and we probably had 100 people come through the gym a month, and barely anyone would stay. Funny that like you and I think Gabby and Laura all said they were on a Groupon and have been here forever, but it's like the one in a million, and you just happen to really stick. But yeah, so we don't do that anymore because you run so many people through the gym that you can't take care of anybody.
Right.
At least we have a process now. So for all you people who are thinking, I just got into CrossFit, we had to do a five foundation class, that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
you don't want to show up.
So what happened to me, into my 7 or 8 minute workout at this point, I, as we all do, I collapsed on the floor.
Yep.
There's a great picture of me somewhere
Have to find
right
out.
after that,
Yeah.
where I'm just like passed out against the wall. I went home. I made it up 3 stairs, not flights of stairs. I made it up 3 stairs.
Just 3.
Crashed out on the landing and fell asleep for like 45 minutes.
Get out of here.
And then I did not, I couldn't talk myself to get back into the gym for about 2 weeks.
Wow. And
But-
so this is, again, why we don't do it that way. There was a time, I'm like, in that 2010 to 15 range, it was, look, come in, try not to throw up. Maybe we'll let you join up.
Right.
Like, why did we do that? We probably scared so many people off. I don't know. That's just the way everybody did it. So much better now, but yeah. So
Well, also, really everybody had the conception of the CrossFit Games because that's
True.
the only thing that was really out there.
That's
You didn't
right.
really actually see oh, well, normal people can do this too, and you just scale it, and here's all the scaling options.
True, there was no scaling.
Right.
Do the muscle up or go home.
Right.
It was so bad.
And that's what I looked at, going
so
in at
wrong
Murph.
with
I'm
us.
like, I can't do 100 pull-ups a day. Like, is that what you guys want me to do? Like, no, I can't do that. I realized that was a once a year, like, special workout that was meant to be brutal, and that's not what you guys do on a normal basis. So
I hear, so you'll have a good insight on this. A long time ago when we started the gym, so it was 2007, 2008, we did say, I wonder what it's going to be like in 10 to 15 years on our joints. Will we be like totally broken down or better for it? And so everything feels like I can still move. I'm 50 and I can do things that my peers can't. You've been doing this, you're going on a year 11 or 12 now. Mm-hmm. How are your joints? How are you moving?
Fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel better. I'm 42, so I feel better now than I did at 30.
Yeah.
So, and I've only done CrossFit through that. There was another coach that we had previously.
Yes, I've gone through a lot of coaches.
But he made a line or said something that really stuck with me, and it was funny, but it's also true. It's like, CrossFit doesn't really cause a whole lot of injuries. It's the fact that you get in shape and you feel good, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go out and do a whole bunch of dumb stuff. And that's what causes the injuries.
Yeah.
I've gotten injured more times doing mud races than I've ever done in CrossFit. And I've done way more CrossFit workouts than mud races. And the reason why I got injured in the mud races was those were times where I was taking breaks from the gym and not properly working out.
Oh, interesting.
And I just jumped into a Spartan race and I tore my bicep.
Now that is a hard thing to do, like especially. So we just had a couple people come back from a long time. Kelly, Amanda. There's like 3 or 4 more, and I'm too old. I can't remember names. But I had to. We've had the conversation of, you remember what you could do. It's been 5-10 years. Go easy. Let your body get into it. Don't jump back in and know It's usually girls handle it really well. The boys or men, women handle it well. Men are like, no. Yeah. I know I deadlifted 500 pounds. I'm totally going to do 5. I'm like, don't do that. It's totally going to hurt you. Don't do that.
I was one of those because, like I said, about 2015, I did a lot of races back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
I was really bad on my legs. So this is actually a good progression story. So I took, I don't even know, 4 or 5 months off from the gym just to recover and just relax.
Yep.
Because my knees were hurting. It was one of the Spartan races. I couldn't even run anymore because my knees were hurting that bad. And then following that, I had an actual half marathon 2 weeks later. I was almost in tears across the finish line because I was in so much pain. So I was like, I need to take a break. This was just too much all at once. I was 6 races between October and November, and all of them were like,
yeah, you could definitely
5 miles to half marathons. So I definitely overdid it. And in that time, I came back thinking, I'll just jump right back where I was.
Right,
I was at the top of the leaderboard. I can do that again. No.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
The best thing for me in CrossFit was never looking at the leaderboard again.
Yeah.
And I log my own stuff. Every now and then I'll take a peek just to see if I think I really did really well. I'll check it, but for the most part, I don't ever even look at the leaderboard.
That's fascinating. So I have the same story of I don't look anymore. So there was a time, I don't know what it was or where it happened, but all of a sudden, I don't even look at the leaderboard. And I own the place. I'm like, whatever. And now in the open, I'll look and have fun with it or whatever. But it's just about us moving and us, like I told, who was it the other day? You want to get below parallel. Your hips below your knee crease, right? So get below that parallel mark. You want to lift something heavy, and you want to run. And you want to move your body in ways that you're going to be moving anyway. And that way, feebleness, it was Jeff Binky. So we did a podcast episode a little bit ago. I don't know when that'll come out. But he's 60, and he's like, I'm in great shape right now. And it's just being smart about my movement, coming in, and what does Paul call it? Paul calls it gentleman's CrossFit. He's like, I'm not doing a 1 rep max. I'll do a set of 5. I'm just going to take it easy on that one. But I think that's a smart way to do it. It lets you experience life more, and it keeps us healthy and fit. So
Right.
we can do the things that anybody wants to do, no problem. You want to go up Blood Mountain? Let's do it.
No, I do like the leaderboard for the kind of the competition aspect.
Sure.
That's actually what actually pushed me to do better in the gym.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was Sean Allen, the old member from years ago.
Yeah.
When I first joined and actually really kind of got into the groove of it, every time I finished a workout, he was like 1 or 2 spots ahead of me. Every single workout. So I made it my goal. Like, he's the person I'm going after. I'm going to beat him no matter what. I don't care what anybody else does. So I finally did that. And I was consistently doing better than he was. So then it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to pick somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's how I slowly kind of built up and got up to the top of the leaderboard. But then when you're at that point, you just kind of go, and then people are looking to you as like, okay, what did you do on this? And you're kind of setting the standard. At this point, I was going in the morning, so I didn't have anybody to reference, and I just kind of
If you go first, you don't know what's happening. Yeah,
Right.
so the 5 a.m. class doesn't get to see anything.
Yeah.
So Louis does that exact same thing for me. He likes to look at my score and try to beat me. So hopefully he never listens to this and calls me out, because it's not that way at all. You're like, you jerk. Okay, so I got a couple questions that I typically ask everybody. I'm going to hit these with you. So let's see here. I should have brought my glasses.
It's funny, it's a notebook, but you have actually Post-it notes in your notebook, and you don't actually write in it.
That way, if I don't like the question, I can rip it out. Yeah, before I start, because I like this book. It's kind of nice, and I don't want to ruin it. So I'm like, make sure I like the questions. I've been using the same questions long enough that I should probably write them in there. All right. So, all right. What was your first job?
My first job was a bag boy at Publix.
I was a bag boy at Big Star. I don't know if you remember those.
Don't know those.
Did you grow up here in Georgia? Mm-hmm. Where did you go to high school?
North Cobb.
Oh, okay. I was Parkview High School in Stone Mountain.
Don't know.
Yeah, on the other side of town by the Big Rock. What did you learn from that job?
Ooh.
I learned I never want to do this again. I need to get a college education.
I learned how to slack off.
How to steal food from the grocery store. That's what we all
I
learned.
did do that, but I learned how to slack off and make it look like I was working and I would never get caught. Everybody else would. They're like, why is David never getting caught? And it's like, he's out there working. I'm like,
I'm not doing anything. I also learned that you can't sell beer on Sunday. At least back then, I didn't know that, and people would always come buy it from me because I'm the idiot teenager. I don't know what code 11111 is. What does that mean? Just how much was that beer? All right, so what's something that your parents or grandparents taught you that you have found valuable? And you can say pass if you don't have anything off the top of your head. I know some of these are like,
I will.
you want something deep? No.
No, I'll say this. Like, it's not something like here's a proverb or something, anything like that. But I got my work ethic from my dad.
Okay.
He was somebody who worked 12 hours a day, like constantly. He was gone a lot growing up, like for work. But when we come back, Saturdays was our working out in the yard time. So
Yeah.
as soon as my Saturday morning cartoons were done,
You're
it was
outside.
like, we're outside. It didn't matter summer, winter, fall, we were out there and we would work, and my dad would just keep going. Even to, when was this? 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I had to replace my floors due to something, and my dad came over to help me, and he was running circles around me. He was almost 70 years old at this time, like still just cranking it. So like I've kind of gotten my work ethic from him.
That's very cool. So you're saying that doing Saturday yard maintenance has value?
Yes, it builds character.
As we stare daggers into Levi.
I hate it.
What do we do almost every Saturday?
We mow everything every Saturday, and Evan was like, I got good at doing my part, and then slowly Olivia and Evan both left for college. And
That's what they do.
And so now it's just me and Dad throughout the school year.
Well, Evie's now in high school, so she's going to have to do stuff.
Okay, well, in the past, she hasn't done anything. And so, for a while, Evan would use the weed whacker.
We did have a good system. I love the
would
fact that they came up with a system. I'm like, all right.
I would use the push mower, and then I would edge, and Olivia would do something else. I don't really know what she did, but
She did some tractor work.
that's right. She would sit on the tractor. And so, she also leaf blew everything. But basically, they both left, and so it started taking like 6 hours with like me and Dad. Or he was out there for like 6, I was out there for like 4 because I woke up a bit later. But
If you wake up early, it's not as hot. So get out there and start.
in my opinion, sleep is worth more to me than some extra sweat.
And we sweat a lot. But there's a value in it. So you may not appreciate it now, but maybe later on.
Well, that
Hey,
was,
once you get your own house, you're gonna have to do it on
Or
your
you pay
own.
somebody. There was a
I already
time
paid
for a
somebody.
while that I was like, look, I make the value proposition of it is too low. So we started doing chores again like that. Like, hey, we're doing yard work because someone said the success of your child can be foretold off of 2 things: your zip code and the number of chores they had growing up. I'm like, huh?
one quote.
Yeah.
He,
Well,
he heard one thing and he was like, we are going to make your weekends miserable. For the
it's
next
true
8
though.
years.
If you look at all of the big guys from like the Standard Oil, those guys, the Rockefellers, all that, they have these like stories of Great Depression. Well, that not the Great Depression, but like really bad stories, and they get molded into something great, right? I don't really want our kids to have like, I'm an orphan or I lived in a cardboard box, but you want them to experience some adversity so that they can grow out of that.
Well, there's another quote that is hard times create
Hard times create strong men.
men.
Strong men create
great
good
weak,
times.
Good times create
Weak men.
Weak men create strong times. So
Hard
it's the same-
times.
Hard times.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly it. So you want to break the cycle
Yeah.
somehow without actually living in a cardboard box. Yeah.
Artificial adversity.
Artificial diversity. That's why I like
But-
club sports.
So
or
I was
CrossFit.
the youngest in my family, and all the chores fell on me. We had a half-acre lot growing up, and I had to mow the whole thing, edge the whole thing, blow the whole thing on a little push mower that's about this wide. We had a riding lawnmower that was broken, and I asked for years to get that thing fixed. Never did it. After I graduated high school, they sold the house. They moved down to Alabama, and guess what? The first thing they bought was,
Right.
was
Well,
a riding mower.
when all the kids are graduated, I'm buying a landscape company. They'll come back in and do it all. And then they'll bring their kids over to the house and be like, there was a time. Or maybe what we'll do is we'll make it Workhouse Saturday. Everyone will bring their kids over and they'll all have to
Yeah.
learn.
You're gonna have a ton of like 8-year-olds in the yard like trying to lift the lawn equipment.
Well, we'll have them weed or something. Okay, so let's do high, low, buffalo. Any particular high, low, and buffalo for CrossFit?
My high was, and this was something I set out on my first year, was reaching a 500-pound deadlift,
Nice.
which was also kind of added to, I wanted 1,000 CrossFit total.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I've
So CrossFit
kinda-
total is back squat, deadlift, and strict press, right?
Yep.
Because of the strict press, mine will never get above my back squat and my deadlift numbers.
Well, that's why I wanted to get a really big deadlift, because my strict press wasn't.
Well,
wasn't
everybody's is better than mine. I think yesterday,
My
even the
strict
girls
press-
lifted more.
My strict press PR, which I got yesterday, is 100 pounds. And
Nice.
So that is
Following your dad's footsteps. So 15 years
hard.
of CrossFit, I've gone from like 125 to 135. So not even a pound a year. So it's like the most demoralizing
I
lift
don't-
ever.
So when I look back, anything in the 2013 to 2015 range, I just gotta scrap those. I'm like, okay, what did I
can't
do
be-
like
yeah.
the last like 3 years? Except for back squat and deadlift. I don't know
going up.
what's going on with that, but I'm only doing what's in the programming. But every time we max out, now granted, I'm not going all the way to failure.
Right.
I'm basically hitting my PR in like 5 pounds over
That's
that.
what I do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 pound.
Yeah.
I'm it.
As soon as I get 5 pounds over,
So this
I
is the
stop.
secret of less is more. So you don't always have to do like you've seen the span, the change of what we like CrossFit like put on us. It was like, at one point it was you show up, there is no coaching, learning or anything. It's go time until the very end. There's like 3 different types of workouts. There's a lift. There's whatever. I'm like, okay, that's too much. And so it's it's gone back and forth, but you can get a whole lot more bang out of the buck with the intensity rather than the volume. And that's a trade-off that CrossFit has is, hey, we're going to go with intensity, thus learn it and move it, rather than volume, which is typically more hypertrophy driven. So what about a low? You have a low?
a low,
We don't have to do a low because no one wants to hear low.
No, there's a low.
Uh-oh.
It was one of the open workout. There's actually 2 of them.
So the CrossFit Open is a big event that you can do online, and almost all CrossFit gyms have their members participate in some format.
Yeah, and the better you do, you can qualify regionals.
Sure,
and
not us,
basically,
but-
yeah, not us, but well, actually, there was a time we had a few people that got close.
I made it to regionals, but I think
But,
all you do is buy your way in on that one back
yeah.
then.
It was, what did it start at? It was burpees over the bar and thrusters, and it started at 21 or 25 maybe, and it dropped by 2. So you did, I think it was 25, 23, 21, 19, 17, all the way down,
Wow,
and you
that sounds horrible.
did thrusters and then burpees over the bar. Absolutely terrible. I swore I would never do that one again. And to this day, I haven't. If it shows up in the program,
yeah.
I do not show up that day.
Bench press day.
Yeah, if I happen to show up and I didn't look, I'm not doing that
And you
workout.
can do that at our gym. If you look at it and you're like, I can't do it, I don't like that, whatever, we are happy coming up with something different. We like to preserve the stimulus or the movement, but you don't want people to do stuff they don't really want to do. Did it crush you? Did you lay on the floor afterwards or something? In a puddle of goo?
I was completely, and I had Tim Nickerson, which was an older coach, and he was super strict when it came to coaching, like games level, strict. So I got no rep. I don't know how many times.
In a regular, it was the open.
It was the open, and I was good. I'm like, I did sign up for the open, so it was like, okay, it's legit, but it's like, I went parallel.
Yeah.
Like
So,
at this point, it's
Tim
fine.
Nickerson.
He's a good guy.
He is a very good guy, yeah. We were talking on Steam the other day, or maybe a year ago, but he no-repped Rich Froning, who came down to one of our events. We did the Garage Games 1 in the back of the Woodlands, and there was a box jump thing, and he dragged his foot up, which is a no-rep, and he totally no-repped him. And Rich just looked back, and he's like, okay. I'm like, wow, what a super cool dude, because he could have made this bad for us.
That's awesome.
Anything surprising? Buffalo is the surprising.
I think surprising is my performance on a rower.
Oh.
I hate it, but I'm actually good at it. So it's.
I was going to say surprising, there's a D&D group from the gym.
Oh, that was.
Meatheads that play D&D. I mean, that's pretty...
So backstory here, I ran into Andy at Reformation Brewery.
Yeah, that's when we found out we both played, yeah.
5-6 years ago.
Something like that.
And it was a random event, game night that they had. Like, oh,
Wait,
you played?
hey,
Yeah, you
well,
played.
yeah.
Like, oh.
You were doing 5 a.m. at the time, right? 5 a.m. classes?
6 a.m.
Something early. So early enough that I would not see you in a normal day.
Right.
I'd never, 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. I don't go to. I'm like, hey.
Yeah, I think it had been like 4 years since we saw each other. So yeah, that was funny that you just sent out an email. And then we had, what,
There was
12,
about something
10,
like 12 people that are interested.
But then now we got about
5 that are doing it. Yeah. And Jamie and Jordan actually saw that email as they were just leads. They just put their information in. So they definitely came to the gym to play D&D with like, that's pretty funny. Coach Jamie said that'll never work. People are never going to do this, but here we are. Okay, so let's do... if you had the billboard right in front of the gym, people at 92 driving back and forth, not health and fitness, or it can be, whatever, what message would you tell people? So what is your message to the world? If you bought that billboard and could put whatever you wanted on it. Not bought it, you rented it, whatever.
This is, I'm stealing this, but it's kind of my own personal
I like
motto.
it, yeah, stealing's fine.
Direction determines destination.
Oh yeah.
So based on what you're doing in life and what your attitude, your habits is going to determine your end result. So if you want to be fit and you want to run a 5-minute mile, but you're eating junk, your direction there isn't going to match your destination. So I've applied, that was actually something I heard at Andy Stanley's sermon years ago.
North Point, yep.
At North Point, and that just stuck with me, and I've applied that to so many parts of my life that I needed to get a new car. Like, okay, what am I doing?
If I'm not saving the money for it, then I'm not going to get it.
I was in college at the time, just kind of screwing off. Like, okay, I need to finish college. I need to get a better job. I need to earn the income.
Right.
So, short answer, yes, that would be it.
That's pretty cool. So, we just did a podcast. I guess it came out the other day, but it was on goals, and we were talking about how you have to have goals. I'm giving them extra since we've been sitting here for extra tip for
Yeah, I was
the
gonna get another beer, but
since we've been sitting for a while.
Yeah.
But if you have if you cast a vision of your destination, then you write your goals to get you to those.
Right.
Yeah, that's how you do
the
it.
same thing.
Yeah. What books or podcasts do you listen to, or would you recommend?
So to be honest, I don't really listen to podcasts. That
So
much.
CrossFit Garage is a good podcast. You
Yeah.
should all listen to that.
Except for that one, I obviously listen to
You're
that
listening to it now.
Books wise, I tend to read for pleasure.
Yep.
Than
What's your best pleasure series? No, that sounded weird. What's your best? Yeah. Sci-fi,
edit that one
fantasy.
out.
Yeah. What's your favorite
Genre.
There you go.
Genre?
Or book.
I'll have to go back and look.
So we just listened to. They've got a new category called Lit RPG. So it's a literary role-playing game. And you're like, okay.
Imagine a D&D, but it's a book.
Or you're playing World of Warcraft, but they write it as a book. Sometimes it's like they swing and 5 points of damage. Other times they sort of like meta that a bit. But probably my favorite book in a long time is in that genre, and it's called He Who Fights with Monsters.
They were so good. Like I listened to them. I listened to them maybe. I started 2 months ago, finished a month ago. There's 9 books. They're each about like 20 something hours, but I listened to all of them like back to back to back, and I would like always have my earplugs in. They were so good. Like
And
you should definitely
stay
listen
in
to
your car even though you're at the place you need to go,
yeah.
so you can listen more.
Like I don't think I've listened to music in like 2 months, and I used to listen to music all the time.
When on road trips, I'll usually get a book on tape, and I'll do that because typically, like if I'm going down to Florida, it's about 7-8 hour drive,
Yeah.
and that's roughly how much. Well, books on tape are like 9.5 hours, so I always come back and I'm like, I gotta listen to
A little bit more,
what's gonna
yeah.
happen. But I would say I'm remembering it now. It's The Lies of Locke Lamora.
Ooh, no, I've never heard that one.
It's a 3-book series. I think there might be a 4th one coming out.
Okay,
Is it Locke Lamora or Locke Lamore?
I'll find it, and then I'll post the link to it.
That's really good. And then since I finished that one up, I'm reading the Mistborn series.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on book 1 of that.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
So I got the whole series, but I'm almost done with the first book. I read really slow. I read at night.
So I listen to everything, but
See,
so
that's what I
there's
should
the Mistborn, and then there's the next set of books, which happens like 100 years later, and then there's some other. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. How they tie all that stuff together. That was a pretty impressive story. I like that one.
And then there was another series I picked up years ago, and there's tons of books in this. I think it's Simon Green. I think he's the author. But it's like a Twilight Zone type
that'd be cool.
scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. A lot of weird stuff's going on. Like he's like a private investigator investigating all these little weird, like magic-y
Sure.
things and stuff.
Have you?
Is it
So
the
they made a
Dresden
TV
Files?
show out of it, not so good, but the books for Dresden Files are pretty good.
Maybe it is the Dresden Files.
He's a wizard in Chicago.
Yes. Yeah, but he's.
I don't remember
PI
the guy
type
who
thing.
wrote it, but
It is the Dresden Files.
So the first
Okay.
2 books kind of slow, but then it really picks up, and it's super fascinating.
Yeah, and then I think it was like 7 or 8 books in,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of started dragging a bit. Said I felt
I'm
out
out.
of it. Yeah, like that seems to be like when I get into a big series like that. Once I hit after 6 books,
Right.
unless it's really going strong,
And they're trying
like,
to make money.
Yeah, and that's what this was. Like it was just dragging out. I was like, okay, same scenario
Right.
again. Oh, just happened. This happened. This
You probably really
thing
dig
popped
the
up.
He Who Fights with Monsters. It's kind of a weird title, but
Yeah.
the main character is Australian, so some of the jokes are I'm like, I don't know if I get that, but it is a whole
He's
lot of
very-
80s reference, especially
Yeah.
Knight Rider.
That's
and
like Ready
Airwolf.
Player One.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Ready Player One. The book was
Yeah.
really good. The movie.
Movie.
They tried, but it kind of
Yeah.
fell short.
I
Ready
listened-
Player 2, I wasn't as much of a fan of.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to put too much nostalgia in there.
Right. And it was stuff that was like more far, like, oh, well, I didn't even do that. And I did a lot of geeky things. Like
Right,
they were
yeah, they were
doing like
getting real
D&D stuff
niche,
and
yeah.
playing joust. I'm like, yeah, I did all those things. But
Yeah.
what they were talking about, I'm like, I had no idea what they were talking about. It
Yeah,
was
they
too
went
far out.
too into the meta.
Right, yeah. All right, cool, man. This has been a lot of fun. Guys, we look forward to having you either at the gym, if you're here local in Woodstock, come out to CrossFit Garage. If you're into D&D and fitness, then you've got a place with at least 5 of us.
Yeah.
The other 100 and something people don't do D&D and CrossFit. If you are into Spartan races or mud races or adventure races and you're looking for a place to train, then yeah, Woodstock, Georgia, CrossFit Garage. All right, guys, it's been fun.